His funeral was paid by Paul McCartney.
She's coming in, that Boeing that brings the world-famous Four.
How many of us dreamed as teenagers of being a rock star and being besieged by delirious girls? When we are teenagers, we dream of a life out of the ordinary. We think that fame is the way to happiness. The story of the man I introduced to you shows us something different. To have an extraordinary life, it is not important to be famous. He lived as a rock star, even though he really wasn't. He was always on tour around the world, not surrounded by thousands of ordinary people or just fans, but always surrounded by brilliant minds. Writers, musicians, actors, people of art, a life spent next to the most enlightened minds of art. This helped him learn something from each of them. Artists who gave him a sincere piece of their private life. Ideas, thoughts, friendship, and experiences. All this only for a photo. I introduce to you Dezo Hoffman. To tell about his life, I came to a small town in Slovakia called Banská Štiavnica. I came to the house where Dezo Hoffman was born. Today, Simon Skafarik, a young boy from the city, has given new life to this house and to the story of Dezo Hoffman. Who was Dezo Hoffman?
Dezo was one of the best photographers in the world. We can say one of the best photographers of that era, especially in show business. He photographed the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Frank Sinatra, Marilyn Monroe, Charlie Chaplin, Marlon Brando, Bob Marley, Sophia Loren, and many others. Surely, if one photographed this kind of artists, and not only photographed them, but was sought after by them, it means he was a successful photographer and an important person. This was Dezo Hoffman. It is very interesting that such a person was born here, in this house in Banská Štiavnica, Slovakia. He was born in 1912. He moved with his mother to Paris, where he did an internship for the American company 20th Century Fox. They sent him to Ethiopia as a war cameraman. After that, he was sent to Barcelona, where he had to film the Olympic Games. But unfortunately, the Civil War started in Spain. In Spain, he met Ernest Hemingway. He married for the first time. But unfortunately, while crossing the front line with his wife, she died and Hoffman nearly died too. That moment, he decided to leave and went to Great Britain, first to Leicester and then to London. He opened a classic studio. At the same time, he started taking photos for major magazines, Cashbox, Record Mirror, and even Billboard. After that, he met the Beatles in a very curious way. One day, a letter arrived in the editorial office in a scented pink sachet. It intrigued them, and they decided to open it. A Liverpool fan wrote that in British pop music, there were not only artists from London, there were also interesting bands in other cities. One of them was located in Liverpool and was called the Beatles. No one knew anything about the Beatles until that moment. They had only played in 3 clubs in Liverpool and once in Hamburg. It was an unknown group. Hoffman persuaded the editors to send him to Liverpool. He met the Beatles and took some amazing photos. Already in this first meeting, Dezo saw that the Beatles were unique. And even the Beatles realized that Dezo was a totally different photographer from what they expected. From that moment, he was with them until the end of their career. He was the one who took the first photo of the Beatles. And he took more photos of the Beatles than any other photographer in the world. He was with them in all the most important moments of their career. He was not just their photographer, but a friend. He traveled all over the world with them, in America, in Paris, everywhere. Dezo taught Ringo Starr to photograph. They often joked about it. The Beatles would teach him English while he taught them photography. Dezo Hoffman conquered these stars because he had a very human relationship. During the set, he talked about everyday things in life. The artists forgot they were being photographed. They were natural, authentic, and Hoffman captured that moment. He photographed stars as if they were normal people. He invented interesting compositions, photographed them in motion, and let them be themselves. That was very important.
There's a place.
Leafing through the book, I realize what incredible characters he was in contact with. Bob Deadly, the Mamas and the Papas, Bob Dylan, Jim Morrison, Pink Floyd in the Syd Barrett era, James Brown, David Bowie, the very young Elton John, the immense Jimi Hendrix, Marianne Faithfull. Not only musicians, but also actors like Marilyn Monroe, Anthony Quinn, Kirk Douglas, Luchino Visconti, and then jazz musicians Louis Armstrong, Thelonious Monk, Ray Charles, and the great 20th century philosopher Bertrand Russell.
After starting to collaborate with the Beatles, he was contacted by other bands such as the Rolling Stones. He always tried to be original, never copying what he had done before. That's why artists wanted him. Frank Sinatra, already a big star, flew from New York to London just to be photographed by Hoffman. Then he returned to New York with the photos. This shows how much he was valued. He often brought his son David to the set, even with the Beatles. David ran around with the camera and filmed Hoffman while he worked. When asked why the relationship between his father and the Beatles was so special, David said, "When Hoffman met the Beatles, they were 18 and he was 50. Although he was already someone, he felt rejuvenated with them. Their collaboration was not about money. He didn't even have a contract with them. He had a more artistic approach. He didn't care about money, he cared about people and photography." It is interesting that the Beatles are known all over the world, but Hoffman is not. Yet it was Hoffman who at the beginning introduced the Beatles among the stars.
Dezo Hoffman was not hired by the Beatles. It was him who introduced the Beatles among his extraordinary acquaintances. This explains the deep bond between them and why Paul McCartney took care of his funeral.
Hoffman's voice is featured in the song Yellow Submarine. The message was likely an insult to the regime, and people like to think so. When the song was released here in Czechoslovakia during the communist era, it was very fascinating to all of us. The voice of a Czechoslovakian in a world-famous song saying "lick me" was supposed to be a message to the communists and the party leadership in Czechoslovakia. People wanted to believe it was really his voice.
After all these anecdotes, could you tell me how this initiative was born and what you do and will do?
The initiative of the Dezo Hoffman house all started with my brother Mikkel. He noticed that this house was completely destroyed because no one lived there in the last 40 years. He convinced our parents to buy this house and started looking for various subsidies to be able to renovate it. We finished the renovation and made a grand opening in 2019. We really like the story of Dezo Hoffman. We think that Dezo Hoffman's theme can be a great thing for our city, but not only, also for the whole of Slovakia. We have decided to create a small museum, a small room. In the house, there is also an apartment where people can stay, and whoever stays there will be able to sleep here in the same room. But here we have the most interesting thing, a part of the mine. Here there was the mine. Here the miners tried to find gold and silver. Here it was mined around 1600, so it is 400 years old. Even when Don Airey from Deep Purple came, he liked it a lot.
As we leave the house, Simon transmits to me his enthusiasm for this project and the strong desire to make this magical place.
There will be a fantastic space for concerts, events, and exhibitions. The thing that will make us happier and support us will be when you come here to visit us. Come and see these photos, take a stroll around the house, or stay here and have a coffee in the courtyard. We will get to know each other and become friends. This will be the most beautiful thing.
Even more dreamy is the story of Dezo Hoffman, and when I consider that he was not born in a city like London, and a city where art thrives, where there is the opportunity to study, develop, and create the right connections. Hoffman grew up in a small village, 700 milit in Slovakia, far from art, but his human skills and his talent have brought him where other London photographers dreamed but did not succeed. And this last photo
It is very nice that here is really many photographers that are around the Beatles, but the only one who is with the Beatles is Dezo Hoffman. It is really fantastic, and it is the picture from the time when they arrived from the USA back to England, to the Heathrow. Here is written, for instance, "Welcome home, boys."